Welcome to CMO Journeys, where we sit down with marketing leaders shaping some of today's most innovative brands. I'm Christian Bedak, and I explore stories behind the CMOs, how they lead, how they grow, and how they think about partnering with agencies. Today, I'm joined by Justin Steinman, the new Chief Marketing Officer at ModMed. ModMed is a specialty-focused healthcare SaaS company that specializes in EHR, practice management, revenue cycle, patient engagement, and AI-driven tools to help over 40,000 providers run more efficient data-driven practices. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So before we get into your work at ModMed, I'd love to zoom out a bit here. When you look at your career as a whole, whether that be consulting and enterprise tech, payer, data platforms, you've been doing a lot. What's sort of the through line that connects all those chapters for you?
So the through line is a couple of them, right? Number one, I have been in healthcare or healthcare IT since about 2010. But even going back before that, when I started after business school at Novell, I would tell you the through line is that I've been a storyteller, right? I like to tell stories about people, about products, about companies. I want to understand what people's challenges are and then figure out how the company that I'm working for can help address them, improve their quality of life. And it's not just about, helping you make more money or helping you be more efficient. At the end of the day, people want to buy from people, and people are people who are buying. And that sounds kind of crazy. But if you speak to the emotional need of who your audience is and you connect with them on a human level through a story, I generally found that resonates better than the corporate gobbledygook that we all sit down in front of our computer and see how many fancy words we can put into a Word document with multiple syllables in them. So storytelling.
Yeah. I'd love to talk about that more as we move on, especially in the age of AI, where there's just so much content that is being produced and how you're thinking about that. So you've just stepped into this role,
Yes.
and after a string of big transformative roles in healthcare tech, what's been sort of the most energizing or surprising part of the first few months in this seat?
Yeah. So today is actually day 60. I got an email from my automated HR system this morning, congratulating me on reaching day 60 and to please put my goals into the system. You got to love corporate HR, right? What's exciting for me about ModMed is a couple of things. When I was going through the interview process, I kept saying to myself, there's no way the culture can be this good. There's no way that everybody here can be such a decent human person, can have such good values and like no ego. And I spent the first 30 days here waiting for the other shoe to drop, and the other shoe never dropped. And so now I'm like, yeah, the culture really is as good as I thought and had sussed out in the interview process. And people here really are as genuine as I had hoped and thought. And it's just a wonderful place to work. And I thoroughly am enjoying the people that I'm working with. The other part that has just blown me away since I've gotten here has been I call it a better phrase, the quality and reality of the product. We've got an amazing product and it really works. And in many regards, it sells itself. And look, I've been in software for a long time. I won't name names, but I've sold some vaporware. I think anybody working in software who's listening to this podcast has sold some vaporware. Just kind of par for the course. So you're selling futures or you're selling roadmaps. Here, our product, our latest AI product, for example, is so good that I was confident running a live unscripted 15-minute demo in front of 1,200 people at our recent user conference, right? And it came off without a hitch. And if you don't believe me, and I'm not trying to sell marketers here our software, because frankly, none of you are specialty doctors, so you don't need it, but it's so good. We put the live unscripted demo on the front page of our website today, or yesterday, actually, right? As a proof point that said, yeah, this is so good. Like, we don't need to fake it. I don't need to have, my whiz bang video team make it look like it's real. Like, here you go. Our two founders on stage running this thing, and you can see it. And coming to a company where, as I said, the culture is amazing and the product is amazing. Like, wow, I get up every day and I just thank my lucky stars.
Yeah, that sounds like a great recipe and for success that you can have in this role and definitely energizing. Love that. So let's go back a bit now. You started, from what I understand, as an English and history major, even ran the Daily Dartmouth as
Yep.
the editor-in-chief.
Yep.
We talked about storytelling a bit already, but how does that kind of shape the way you think and lead also in a data-driven environment that we're in today?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I did double major in English and history. And, I like to tell people that the academic part of my career taught me how to think. And it taught me how to break complex problems down into smaller parts that can be solved and build them back up. But where I really learned how to lead, and frankly, I learned how to write, was at the Daily Dartmouth, right? 5 days a week, newspaper has to come out, or the whole campus knows you didn't get there, right? And I started out second day of freshman year as a staff reporter, then worked my way up to writer, assistant editor, blah, 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 all the way to editor in chief and president. Uh, and there I learned how to write on deadline. As a freshman, sophomore, I was rewritten by people who are today writing for the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and you learn how to write. Uh, and then as the editor, we don't pay people on a college newspaper, or at least we didn't pay people on our college. I know what they're doing these days. I'm unfortunately far removed from my college days. But back then, people worked on the newspaper out of the goodness and graciousness of their heart. And so I had to learn how to motivate, 70, 80 people who were volunteering their time to work in a high pressure environment to produce a newspaper. And you got to enforce a certain level of quality without making people feel bad about themselves or not being appreciative of the work that they've done. And so I really learned how to empower, collaborate, and appreciate people in that cauldron of leading the newspaper. And so that's really how it came together. And again, that's where my love of storytelling comes from.
Yeah, yeah. Were you always a storyteller growing up?
Yeah, I think I always have been storytelling. I like to create things. I like to learn about people and things and then share that. Uh, and I just find it rewarding. And whether it's storytelling like we're doing today on a podcast, or writing, or it's, using storytelling to uh, help employees learn a lesson or figure out how to write or improve their quality of work or motivate. Yeah. Uh, we all have stories, right? Everybody's got their own stories. It helps define who we are. And I would say that each person almost is frankly the collection of their stories.
Mm.
Uh, and think about how much you or your listeners enjoy being at a dinner on Friday night or at a party on Saturday and someone telling you a great story. And you're like, wow, that was awesome. You'll laugh, you'll smile, maybe you learn something. Uh, and I find, at least I gravitate to storytellers, to people who have interesting things to say, who you can help learn from. Uh, and so that's just something I've always been fascinated with, and I'm blessed to be able to do that professionally.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned podcast. I noticed that at Definitive Health, you actually hosted your own podcast and
Yes.
had 50 plus episodes. Tell us a little bit about that experience and what that taught you, maybe from a storytelling perspective, or how to earn attention, or how to maybe even to use podcasts from a business perspective.
Yeah. So I loved our podcast. So it was called Definitively Speaking. It's actually still up on definitively.speaking.com. And so we used it as an awareness mechanism. So at Definitive Healthcare, basically Definitive Healthcare sells healthcare commercial intelligence, which is basically anybody in any industry who wants to sell into the healthcare, whether you're selling tongue depressors, x-rays machines, or fire doors, right? For hospitals, literally, you name it. Uh, we had the information, as Definitive Healthcare still has, the information of who the people are buying are, how many operations they're providing, and how they all connect. That's how the store is. The cool part about what we were doing at Definitive was we were sitting on top of the largest database of healthcare industry information. So if you turned to me and said, Justin, how many babies were born in Houston last week and who paid for them, Aetna, United, or Blue Cross, I could get you that information at the snap of my fingers, right? If you said, Justin, what are the top 10, nephrologists in Portland, Oregon, I could get you that at the snap of my fingers. So we came up with this idea to try to raise awareness of Definitive by having industry conversations, data-driven conversations about the healthcare industry. And what the idea was we would find really interesting people, and then we would go through the Definitive database and pull up relative data points about healthcare, and
Mm.
then bring them to the conversation and use the data from the Definitive Healthcare database as a jumping off point with these really smart people in healthcare to have a conversation about a relevant topic. And rule number one, we never sold Definitive Healthcare other than the very beginning. This podcast is sponsored by Definitive Healthcare.
Sure.
That was it, right? And if you walked away from the podcast thinking, hey, that was really interesting, and Definitive Healthcare equals data, I was thrilled. I achieved all of my business objectives, right? Because I made a link in your mind, you're aware of it. And maybe again, you're at that dinner on Friday and I go, hey, I listened to a really cool podcast. And I learned all this stuff. And it really took off. I mean, I had my friends who are not working in healthcare, like my golf buddies, or, people working in real estate software, listen to a healthcare podcast because we had really interesting people on there. So selfishly for me, it was a blast because I met fascinating people and got to ask them questions. Industry wise or company wise, it was very successful because it helped raise awareness. Healthcare is such a huge topic. It's 20% of our US GDP. A lot of people are interested in it. And so it was easy and fun to host a podcast on it. And it definitely helped raise our awareness.
Yeah. No, obviously we're here on a podcast and we're firm believers in the power of it. And I think more agencies and companies in general are underutilizing that as a tool to build awareness, build relationships, et cetera. So that's great. You've won, or you've worn, I should say, both a GM and a CMO hat, owning P&L as well as brand and demand. How does that operator mindset affect the way that you brief, select, and measure partners today?
Yeah, so the operator mindset, more than anything else, helps me understand my client, right? And I believe very strongly in running a customer service driven marketing organization. Our job is to meet the needs of our customers. And that's not only our external customers, that's our internal customers. That's product management. That is sales. That is sales engineering. That is HR. That is finance. Maybe it's marketing to investors and, or a public market in the case of like Definitive. And so having sat in a GM seat and felt the pressure of trying to hit my number and using marketing as a lever, I get what they're trying to look for. And look, we all know marketing is really hard to measure. It's a little bit art, it's a little bit science, it's a little bit of a black box, particularly to people who don't work in marketing, right? And the number of GMs who say, yeah, like, I know 50% of my marketing investment is working. I just don't know which 50%, right? And I keep that in mind when I'm trying to talk to her, because marketers, particularly like CMOs, we're sitting in a ton of data and we're so proud of our teams and we want to go in and talk to the GM. And I could talk to you for an hour about all the stuff that my team is doing and the great things we're doing for you. And you're going to get like 27% of it, right? And they're going to like, oh my God, the marketing team's doing a lot. That's not useful, right? And so the question is how can you distill all the great stuff your marketing team is doing into a succinct set of metrics that matter to a GM? So, of course, the number one thing is always how are you delivering against pipeline, right? How are the bookings doing? Do we have the right number of opportunities, SQLs and MQLs in there? And you got to have that. You got to know your numbers. Do you have the right pipeline coverage? And are you super tied off with sales? Some GMs, a lot of them are interested in like positioning. Can you show them like the positioning document? And no, I'm not going to make them read a 20-page positioning document, which, by the way, everybody in marketing needs to read and digest, and that's how we use it. But can I go to the GM and go, hey, look, this new product that you're super excited about, here are the 3 business benefits we're going to talk about. And here are the 3 defensible differentiators we're going to talk about. And if the marketing team has done their job well, that's 6 sentences, not 6 paragraphs, 6 sentences.
Yeah.
Right. And then the GM goes, okay, so Justin has come to me and said, here are the numbers. Here's quickly and easily how I understand my product. And then depending on the attitude, if you're talking to a business GM or you're talking to a CEO, you've got to be able to distill brand down. And it can't be like, hey, a lot of people know about us, right? Or, hey, we did a really cool ad. You got to be able to say, hey, unaided awareness, aided awareness, purchase consideration. These are the metrics where we are 6 months ago. Here's where we are today. If you're interested, I can tell you the 9,000 things that we did to get there. I also can give you the top 3 things that we can get there, or you can just look at it and go, thank God you guys are making awareness better. And there you got to know the interest of your CEO. I've worked for CEOs who are like, just give me the awareness numbers. And my current CEO that I work for here at ModMed, he's a little bit of like a marketing nerd like me. He like wants to like go out to lunch and like talk about like what our awareness campaign is. And I love that because, I have a CEO who appreciates what marketing can do for him. And he's got some really good ideas, and we have these great lunches.
Yeah, that's great. Kind of to build off of that a bit, from what I understand, you're coming to ModMed after a private equity investment and
Yes.
some leadership expansions as well. And how does that then affect your thinking about how your first, say, 12 to 18 months as CMO are going to be?
Yeah. So it's a really interesting time to join ModMed. As you mentioned, ModMed was sold from Warburg to Clearlake earlier this year in about a $5.3 billion private equity to private equity transaction. And as part of that, the mandate from Clearlake is grow fast. We think you guys have an amazing product. We don't see any reason why you can't double your business. And then the question they turn to it, they goes, what do you need to double your business? And so it's been this fascinating experience of what got us to $800 million or so in bookings, ballpark, obviously, isn't going to get us to, $2 billion in bookings or wherever we need to get to. Right. And for a lot of people at ModMed, the business, they just grew up with the business, and the business scaled so much. And when you're growing like 20, 25% every year, that's not a problem. I'll deal with that next year, right? Up another year, 20% growth. I'll deal with that problem next year. And now, we've woken up and like 20% growth is like over $100 million. And like the problems that you're dealing with next year now is next year.
Yeah.
And so the challenge and one of the reasons that I was recruited into ModMed as well as my counterpart, the new CRO, is to help design ModMed to exist at scale. So I've had the opportunity to work at some big companies like GE Healthcare, where I was a CMO of GE Healthcare IT. I've worked at Aetna, and then Aetna is part of CVS. So I've seen scale at, Fortune 100, Fortune 50 companies. And I know what needs to be done in a marketing organization at scale, right? And how you configure a marketing lead gen funnel, how you have to configure messages at scale and grow across the organization with positioning documents, how you need to make sure you have consistent line of thought and message across all the different avenues. My counterpart in sales is putting in, sales processes that work at a $1 billion+ company that frankly weren't necessary when ModMed was $1, $2, or $300 million.
Sure.
And so Clearlake is saying, all right, great. We love you. We're going to grow fast. We are going to invest. Let's get a leadership team in here that can implement scale and get ModMed to the next level, because what got you here was fantastic. But getting to where we are today is not the same as where we need to be tomorrow. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely an exciting time. So where do you begin with something like that? How do you think about the team or the tools or partners? Where do you begin in a process like that?
Yeah. So, luckily I've been fortunate in that I've been around a bunch of marketing models, and I kind of come into one that works, and it's one that does scale. It's one that I learned way back in 2004, 2005, working at Novell for a CMO named John Dragoon. And I've consistently used some version of that structure ever since. And it's a structure that enables you to scale. And it starts from a philosophy of everybody in the organization needs to have a single point of contact into the marketing machine. And you've got to design your marketing organization so that people don't question who to go to. If anybody's calling me to get into the marketing organization or to get something done, I failed. Like, I'm happy to take the call. Don't get me wrong. Right. But if they're calling me, it's because they don't know who to go to.
Hmm.
Right. And so broadly speaking, I set up some variation of product marketing, marketing operations, demand generation, and corporate marketing and partner marketing, right? Kind of think about those 5 legs. And you staff depending on the size and the needs of the company. But those are really the 5 fundamental functions of it. Then in a place like ModMed, for example, we've got both the product management work streams, kind of your classic building products, or our EMR product and our practice management product, for example, et cetera, et cetera. We've also got specialty lines. So dermatology, ophthalmology, orthopedic, stuff like that. So I've created a product and specialty marketing organization where each product management work stream has a dedicated product marketer. Each specialty work stream has a dedicated specialty marketer. Our sales team, on the flip side, is organized by customer size, small, medium, large, for lack of a better phrase, right? And so I staffed demand gen people onto that team, allocated like that. But if you think about it, when it comes time to marketing planning, I've got the corporate brand objectives. I've got HR and finance feeding into those. I've got the demand gen, which is thinking about the size of the market because those selling motions. I've got specialty and I've got product. So now all those customers have someone who they have one person called and also one person thinking about their needs. The marketing team needs to bring all that together and create one integrated marketing strategy that meets the needs of everybody and runs under one broad campaign, right? You can't have product campaigns, specialty campaigns, and size campaigns, because what will we stand for? Nothing,
Sure.
right? We stand for everything, you stand for nothing. So in our case, we said, all right, we're going to latch on to this idea of what we're calling the AI-powered practice. It's a big idea. We sell to practices. We're going to deploy AI across every aspect of your practice. Here's our product roadmap for that. And if you're a small customer, the AI-powered practice looks like this. If you're a large customer with 75, 80 doctors, your AI-powered needs are frankly very different than a 2-doc practice. I'm not going to go in like that here, but it's obvious, right? You've got the different types of needs. And so we've come up with this idea of build your AI-powered practice. Now, if I'm a dermatology marketing manager, I can change that to be build your AI-powered dermatology practice and talk about the needs of dermatologists in my marketing campaigns and how that fits in. If I'm a product person, I can say, build your AI-powered practice with Emma, which is the name of our EMR, or build your AI-powered practice with Scribe, which is our AI ambient solution. So you get the idea that like the one campaign can be 15% customized for all those different organizations, but still gives you the ability to have one story. So when you come to our website, and I don't know who you are when you come to our website, build your AI power practices are a top level story. And then as you get deeper down into who you are, the story becomes more and more customized. That's a little bit about internal org turning into go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, no, I love that approach, and love that this is a playbook. It sounds like that you've successfully implemented it in other places and adapting it here. So very interesting. So when it sounds like a lot of team has already been kind of brought in and continues to be brought in. How do you think about outside partners, agencies? Where do they maybe fit into the mix like this?
Yeah, agencies bring a certain level of expertise that I don't have in-house, right? I'll give you a great example. Like a lot of CMOs out there, I'm trying to figure out what do you do with LLM, right? And 20 years ago, my website had to talk just to people. 10 years ago, my website had to talk to people and Google search. Today, I have to talk to people, Google search, and all the different LLMs, and they're collecting data differently than I am, than Google does, right? I'm 100% confident I'm not the only CMO thinking about how do I optimize my website for LLM, right? And how do I get myself so that ChatGPT or Anthropic or any of the other different engines recommend me over my competition, right? I don't have that expertise in-house. It's also, frankly, impossible to get that expertise in-house. Any paid search agency worth its salt has been investigating and trying to figure this out. And if they haven't, my free career advice to them is start working on that. And they're solving it for multiple companies. So I could scour the ends of the earth and try to find an LLM expert and bring that person in-house. Or I can find an agency who's maybe solved it for 20 to 30 or 40 different companies, some of whom look like me, some of whom don't. And I can contract that expertise. And whether I need it on a 30, 60, 90, or ongoing basis depends on the need of my company. But that's a
Sure.
great area where a partner can bring something to the table that makes no sense for me to build out internally, right? At my last company, Ensora Health, we did a rebrand. We changed the name of the company from Therapy Brands to Ensora Health. That is a hopefully once in a company history activity. Again, that expertise is not sitting in-house. However, there are plenty of agencies out there that specialize in rebranding, and they've done it 1, 2, 300 times. So that's another area where I want to go out and find somebody who's done what I'm going to do once 300 times before, because they're going to have a level of expertise that I don't have. So I really look at those areas of expertise, either new stuff like LLMs or occasional or once ever events,
Hmm.
where I go and I bring in partners to help add that expertise.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. How you look at the once in a lifetime events versus the ongoing work that you may be better suited to have in house. So when you're looking for something like this, one of these once in a lifetime events, I'm sure you first kind of look in your own network, but when you don't find maybe somebody that, especially with the LLMs, it's still cutting edge and so new. Where do you go to try to find these types of agencies? How do you discover them?
Yeah, so I generally, unfortunately, I go by word of mouth, right? So I've got friends who are CMOs all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And so I got ongoing chats and texts and whatnot. And so I'll reach out and be like, hey, I'm looking for an LLM agency. Not who did you hire? Who did you look at?
Hmm.
Right? And I want their selection set, because maybe the agency that they hired is not right for me, but the one that they turned down is right for me, because maybe our businesses are different, our needs are different, right? And ultimately, when I go and I scour my network, I'm fortunate enough that I can probably come up with 20 to 30 agencies for anything in my selection set, right? And then from there, I generally work with my team to reach out. We write an RFP, and
Yep.
then we kind of go off. We have some exploratory conversations, and go from there. But my original selection set just comes from my network of
That
people
was-
of who they've talked to. And again, I do the same thing, right? They call me, I need to, here was who's successful for me. Here's what was good about them. Here's what wasn't so good about them, right? Uh, and again, what worked for me may not work for them. That's why I give everybody not just who I picked, but who I considered.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. How, when you now are sort of trying to narrow that list down from 20 or whatever the number
Yeah.
happens to be, how do you weigh things such as like awards or rankings and top agency lists, things like that? Is that something that comes into play at all for you?
Nope. Don't care.
Yeah,
Do not care in the slightest. Uh, I'm looking for your level of talent. I'm looking for your level of expertise. I'm looking for your collaborative partner attitude. And I'm looking, frankly, as to whether I think you're a cultural fit for my team. Right. And at different entities of different cultures, just like different companies have different cultures. Right. And it's very much a dating game. Look, every company, man, isn't a good match for every agency, right? No agency wants to go for a company. If you're like a laid back, very creative agency, you are not going to want to go work with a hard charging, take no prisoners, we don't care about your feelings client. That's cool, right? It's like dating. You got to find the right match. But
sure.
I don't care about rankings. That's someone who I don't know putting some number on something, right?
Yeah,
I got kids applying to college. I tell them, don't look at the college rankings. I don't know if the school you're applying to is number 1 in US News or number 100 in US News. I don't care, right? Look at like students on campus. Look at like the people you're talking to. It's the same thing with agencies.
yeah, yeah, yep. What about their own kind of thought leadership that they're creating? Is that something that you will take into consideration as you evaluate them?
Yes, I will actually read stuff that they do. I will always, always, always look for samples of their work, either what's on their website, or when I get on the phone, I ask them to give their samples. I look at a lot of samples of the work. Previous work is probably the number one factor that I look at.
Yeah.
But if they've written or published or they do stuff like this on a podcast, I
Yeah.
will listen. I will pay attention to it because I'm trying to get to know you and I'm trying to judge you through my filters, not through somebody else's filters. And if you care enough to put some thought leadership out, it's obviously about something that's important to you and you have an opinion on it. So I can learn about you.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. So this has been a great conversation. I want to just switch gears a bit before we close things out. You've led global teams through some very big moments, IPOs, rebrands, acquisitions, PE now. When you look back, what's maybe one leadership lesson you wish you had learned 10 years earlier?
That could be a whole other podcast. That'd probably be about 90 to 120 minutes, to be perfectly honest with you. And so I will instead slightly answer that question slightly differently, which is some advice that I got from, I mentioned John like 20 minutes ago, advice that I got really early on for John, and it's one that I followed. Like, believe it or not, as a younger person, I was in a bit of a rush. I was going places and I was going to get there come hell or high water. And maybe I didn't care so much about what I left in my wake. And, John pulled me aside one day and said, Justin, it's sometimes better to get 80% of the way to your destination with 100% of the people on board than to get all the way to your destination by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, obviously that advice clearly stuck with me and I can still picture the conversation to this day. And it really strikes me as important for a number of reasons, right? A leader without any followers is just some guy walking down the street. And so how do you bring people on the journey with you? How do you help people or let people or make people want to be on the journey with you? Life is a series of choices and you want your team to choose actively to follow you. Right. And so even if you know exactly where you need to go, it might take you longer to bring everybody there, but it'll be much more rewarding and worthwhile if you do that. And how do you meet people where they are and help them get to where you want them to be?
Yeah.
Be patient, understand people's perspective, look at the other side of the apple or the other side of the table and bring them along. And so that's some good advice that I followed early on, and I still try to live by it today. And there are days I do really well, and there are days I don't do so well.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all a work in progress, but that is really great advice. And I love that. And I think a great way to close out this show. So Justin, thanks again for the conversation, the insights, and to everyone watching, don't forget to follow CMO Journeys for more conversations with marketing leaders shaping what's next. I'm Christian Benak. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.